Hello, good evening, and welcome back to my Step Out, Step In podcast live on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. And this is episode 116. And this is the podcast where we challenge ourselves to live beyond limits, break through barriers, and step into purpose, power, and potential. And again, if you're here with me live, I want to welcome you. Thank you for tuning in. And I don't take anything for granted. Your time is very valuable, and we'll make best use of the time as we are here tonight. I just want you to do me one big favor. If you can share the link with one person, tell one person to tell another person that we are live. And as you share, let me also share mine um, on other platforms. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. All right. So, yeah, keep sharing as we are all in this together. And again, thank you for tuning in. Uh, this is going to be a wonderful time together. I know that and I believe that. And thank you so much for tuning in or for watching the replay. All right, so let's see here. Here we go. Okay, one more. Let me post to you my other social media page. Okay, here we go. All right, so um, tonight is going to be a very interesting night where we're going to talk about creative thinking. And creative thinking is a power we all have. We all have it, but most people overlook it. And let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone's solution to a problem and thought, wow, I wouldn't have, I would have never thought of that, how they solve that problem? Or maybe you've said to yourself, I'm not creative. I'm just not a creative person. And that is what we want to deal with tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, David Joe. All right, again, thank you for tuning in to episode 116 of my Step Out, Step In podcast live on YouTube and Facebook. And tonight's episode is uh, it's entitled Creative Thinking. Creative Thinking. And you know, I want us to challenge our mindset today because you are creative. Maybe you've never said it to yourself, maybe nobody has ever told you, but I want to assure you, I want to tell you today that you are a very creative person, even if you don't think so. Do you know every child is very creative until their creativity is killed after drawing on your walls? In order to be creative, you have to break out of the box. Every one of us was placed in a box. We've been in boxes, and it's about time we break out of that box. And I said, in order to be creative, you had to break out of the box. You were conceived and placed in a box called a womb. You were born and placed in a box called a crib. You grew up and was placed in a box called the classroom in a school. In school, you were taught to write within the margins of your notebook. Um, some some were punished for writing outside the margins of your notebook. You completed school and placed in another box called the office or work or your business. In order to be creative, you have to break out of that box. And let's see if we can do this exercise real quick. All right. So on here, I have these dots, 9 dots, and if you're with me tonight, or if you happen to watch the replay, just before we get to how this is solved, I want you to just grab a piece of paper and just draw those 9 dots. And see if you can draw lines, connect all these 9 dots without lifting the pen or the pencil. You have to draw the lines through all the 9 dots without lifting the pen or the pencil. And let's do this. Let me put 1 minute on it, and let's see how best we can all do this. Okay, it starts now. If you're just tuning in, we're doing this exercise where we have these 9 dots, and we want to see if we can connect all these 9 dots without lifting the pen or the pencil. Draw these 9 dots on a piece of paper and see if you can connect all the 9 dots without lifting the pen or paper. 17 seconds, 15 seconds more. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you for participating. Now let's see how this can be done or solved. And let me put the answer right here. So in order to connect all the 9 dots without lifting the pen or the pencil, you have to draw outside the box. You have to extend to go outside the margin of those 9 dots. That is the only way you can connect them. That is the only way you can connect them. And you can only do using 4 lines to connect the dots. So to be creative, I just did it so we can see how creative you are. So to be creative, you have to think outside the box, ladies and gentlemen. And more importantly, you need creative thinking now more than ever. You and I need creative thinking now more than ever. So let's step out of the routine and let's step into innovation. Watch this space. All right, again, thank you for tuning in to episode 116 live on YouTube and Facebook. And tonight we're talking about creative thinking. Right. So creative thinking, what is it? What is creative thinking? Let's try to define it as we go along, as we journey through this. Um, so creative thinking, by definition, is the ability to think in new, imaginative, and original ways. Let me say that again. Creative thinking is the ability to think in new, imaginative, and original ways. It's about seeing things not just as they are, but as they could be. It's not just the artist, it's not just for artists, it's not just for musicians, it's not just for um, writers. No, it's for everyone. Creative thinking applies to everyone, everybody. It applies to entrepreneurs, it applies to teachers, it applies to parents, it applies to pastors, students, leaders, you name it. It applies to everyone. And creative thinking, if you think about it, it's a problem. It's problem solving with new strategies. The world needs problem solvers. It is seeing possibilities where others see problems. It is connecting unrelated ideas to uh, erase or to create something new. Connecting unrelated ideas to create something new. And that is what creative thinking is about. You know, creative thinking is rooted in wisdom. It's inspired by God and empowers you to bring forth solutions in every area of your life. Don't forget, God is our creator, and He made you and I to be creative. All right. He is our creator, and He made you and I to be creative. So, why is creative thinking necessary in your daily life, my daily life? And we want to break it down. But, let's be honest. Every one of us is a problem solver. You are a problem solver. We are problem solvers. And every day, life throws challenges your way, my way, our way. Every day. And how to stretch, some of the challenges it throws our way is how to stretch your budget, how to encourage a discouraged friend. We encounter them every day. We see them, we meet them, we engage them. How to encourage a discouraged friend. How to start a new project, a ministry, business, career, school, you name it. How to keep your kids engaged. How to pivot in your business. And creative thinking helps you, it helps me, it helps us. And let's see some of the things it helps us to do. Creative thinking helps you and I, number one, to adapt. Adapting, changing in a changing world with flexibility, where flexibility is survival. It helps you to adapt in a changing world where flexibility is survival. Not only does it help you to adapt, it also solve problems faster and better. You find multiple solutions, not just the obvious ones. It also helps you to stand out, whether at your job, whether in your business, your ministry, your relationships. Creative thinking makes you unique, it makes you stand out. Not only does it help you to adapt, solve problems faster and better, stand out, it also helps you to innovate and lead. It also helps you to innovate and lead. Yes, it helps you to innovate and lead. Creativity drives growth, ladies and gentlemen. Whether in business, in your career, your ministry, or personal development, it makes you innovative and it helps you to lead. It drives growth. And finally, it grows, helps you grow spiritually. As a person of faith, let me put it in there. It helps you grow spiritually. God often leads us in creative ways. Think of Moses parting the Red Sea or Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Very creative way. So it helps us grow spiritually. And that is divine creativity at work. So creative thinking is not optional, ladies and gentlemen. It is essential. It is not optional, but for. So when you think about creative thinking, now the question again is what prevents people from engaging in creative thinking? What prevents people from engaging in creative thinking? And I want us to explore the creativity blockers. What are some of these things that becomes a blocker from people engaging in creative thinking or being creative or in creativity? You know, because the truth is we are all born creative. Every one of us was born creative. But somewhere along the line, we stop using it. I said earlier on that every child expresses their creativity by first and foremost expressing it on the walls of your house until they are whipped and screamed at, and that shuts them down. That shuts their creativity down. So let's look at a few blockers here. Number one is fear of failure. Fear of failure. You know, I've come to realize that most people don't think creatively because they're afraid to be wrong. Fear shuts down imagination. But mistakes are part of the process. Mistakes are part of the process. You know, as I was preparing this, I saw this quote uh, by Thomas Edison, and he said, "I have found I haven't failed." He says, "I haven't failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." I believe that if he had given up on he finding how to make that electric bulb, we would have all been in darkness by now, and I believe. But he never gave up. And people thought he failed until he got it right. But he said, I never failed. I found just 10,000 ways that won't work. Just imagine that. So the fear of failure is what prevents people from being creative. Not only the fear of failure, sometimes that rigid thinking, being stuck in the ways it's always been done, will kill innovation. You know, I believe in most businesses or job places, they tell you if it's not broken, don't change it or don't touch it. So we get stuck with this is how it's always been done. This is how we've always done it. Don't come up with any other innovative ideas. If it's working, why don't you let it work? We become prisoners of tradition and routine. Even most of the time where we drive to, we sometimes want to use the same route. I tried this today. I had to go to West Virginia this morning, and on my way back, the GPS was rerouting me to the same route I went, and I said, no, let me try something different. So I just turned around and took a different route, and the GPS rerouted me, and it took me on a totally different route I've never ever used before, and it was such an amazing moment driving through the back roads and to get to my destination. And I wouldn't have been able to discover the route if I hadn't made up my mind I'm going to change the routine. And that is how we have to be creative in our ways. Get out of that rigid thinking. Don't become a prisoner of tradition and routine. We also um, get stuck by lack of confidence. Lack of confidence. So many people, so many people say I'm not creative, and that belief becomes their reality. Sometimes we allow others to tell us that you're not creative, but don't allow the opinion of other people to become your reality. Creativity isn't a talent, it's a muscle. You just need to use it more. Nobody goes to the gym and develop muscles the same day. In order to develop muscles, you have to consistently go to the gym, consistently work out, uh, little by little, and that is how you develop those muscles. That is how creativity is. It is not a talent. It is a muscle. You just need to use it more and use it more, and 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 that is how you get creative. We also allow that busyness and distractions. This is a big one. When your life, my life, our lives are full of noise. Of course, we now live in a very noisy world, a noisy environment, when our lives are full of hassle and mindless scrolling of, you name it, social media. You don't give your brain space to think creatively. I just had to pause a little bit for it to sink in. Social media is taking that creative thinking away from us. And creativity thrives in imagine. So your busyness and distractions doesn't help. Most especially when we're glued to this kind of gadget. I'm holding it in my hand. And finally, negative environment. The negative environment also does not help. It's a creative blocker. If you surround yourself with people who shut down ideas, they mock your innovation, or reward only conformity, creative thinking will be suppressed. Creative thinking will be suppressed. So that is where you have to separate yourself from the negative environment, people that don't see what you're doing and always want to shut it down. If you and I want to live transformed, if you want to live a transformed life, you must break free from these mental limitations. You have to. You have to break free from all these mental limitations. So now that we've talked about these creative blockers, let's look at how to cultivate and use creative thinking. How do you cultivate and use creative thinking? And we want to shift gears a little bit. You know what creative thinking is. Now that you know what creative thinking is and you know what is blocking it, we want to actually tap into how to cultivate and use creative thinking. But how do you actually tap into that? How do you actually tap into that? And I'm glad you asked. So let me give you let's see, let's do five. Let's do five. Let me give you 5 ways to unblock and use creative thinking every day. So number one is ask better questions. Creative thinkers ask, what if, why not, or how else all the time. Instead of, can I do this? You ask, how can I do this differently or better? And I want to give you a challenge this week. You know, every week I want to come up with a challenge. I want to give you a challenge this week. Now take one area of frustration and ask, what are 3 different ways I could approach this? One area of frustration. So creative thinkers ask better questions. Number 2 is they make time to think. They make time to think. Schedule a quiet time. Now, when I talk about a quiet time, no phones, no electronic gadgets, iPad, what, whatever, no TV, just you and a notepad. Think, dream, and imagine. Even 10 to 15 minutes of creative space daily can birth ideas you've never ever considered. 10 to 15 minutes. I was listening to Dr. John Maxwell the other time, and he made mention that every year he goes to the secluded place in Canada. It's on a mountain top, and that is where he goes, and he um, gets new ideas to write his books. He says the place is so quiet. Once he gets there, no phones, no TV, nothing. It's a quiet environment, and he's able to get ideas to write his leadership books. And it helps. It helps. Number 3 is surround yourself create uh, with creativity. You got to surround yourself with creativity. Get around people who think creatively, those who have the big dreams, those who speak life, read books, listen to podcasts like this one, watch TED Talks, fill your mind with innovative voices. And most of the time, when I'm preparing the episodes, with most of the topics, I get on YouTube and I search for something relating to the topic, and I listen to people who have done it before, and I get ideas from it. I listen to TED Talk. Um, I learn from it too. So get around people who think differently, people who dream big, people who speak life. Read books. It is said that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. You know, Be part of the reading culture. Let the reading culture be part of you. You can listen to audiobooks, which is, I mean, investing in it is also very important. And listen, as again I said, listen to podcasts like this one. And number four is try something new on a regular basis. Try something new. You know, one of the things I decided to do a couple of years back was to learn something new every day. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. As long as it is something new, I never knew about it yesterday, but I got to know about it today. It is amazing. You know, break that routine. Go to a new place. My bishop always tells us that don't be a village champion. Every now and then, go to a place you've never been before. You don't have to go be the champion. Sometimes you just have to go, observe, and come back. Now, once you're exposed, you can never be unexposed. Go to new places, try new recipes. That's one of the things that I do most of the time when we go to restaurants. I look through the menu and I pick something I've never tried before. The other time, my wife and I went to the restaurant. I looked through and I picked a menu. And it looked. I mean, the picture looked good, and I picked that one. And when they served the when the food was served, I mean it tasted good. It was salad and salmon, but not knowing the salmon was raw. But I had consumed everything before I asked what was that thing on it, and they said it was raw salmon. But it was too late. You know, I've tried frog legs. It tasted so good. You know, to try something new, try new recipes, try new things, read and different books and with from all backgrounds. Creativity thrives. There's a saying that which goes that creativity thrives. This phrase creativity thrives in novelty. Creativity thrives in novelty means that creativity flourishes or becomes more active when it is exposed to new, fresh, and unfamiliar experiences, ideas, or environment. So every now and then, break free from that routine. You know, Creativity is the ability to think of new ideas, solutions, and ways to doing things. New ways of doing things. And Thrive grows well. It prospers, becomes more effective, and novelty, the quality of being new, original, or unusual. So the full meaning of creativity thrives in novelty is when you encounter new things, whether it's new perspective, new challenges, or new surroundings, your creative thinking is stimulated. The unfamiliar pushes your mind to explore, imagine, and innovate rather than rely on old patterns. So the takeaway is if you want to boost your creativity, ladies and gentlemen, step out of the routine, explore new experiences, and embrace the unknown because creativity loves fresh soil to grow in. And finally, pray and invite God into the process. Don't forget, our Creator is the ultimate creative thinker. So ask the Lord to give you insight, to give you ideas and inspiration. Creative thinking is not just mental, it is spiritual, ladies and gentlemen. It is spiritual. And again, thank you for tuning in to episode 116 of my Step Out, Step In podcast, live on YouTube and Facebook. Now, before we end today's episode, I want to tell somebody out there that you were created to be creative. I don't know if you want to write it down somewhere, paste it, or post it somewhere. You can always see it, that to encourage yourself that you were created to be creative. You have the capacity to innovate, inspire, and impact. So today, as I encourage you, I want us to step out of the box. I said earlier on that we are all conceived in a box called the womb. We're born and placed in another box called the crib. We grew, placed in another box called the classroom. Went through school, graduated, left school, placed in another box called the office or work or business. And after we've ended our lives, we'll be placed in another box called the casket. But before you go into your final box, we have to break out of that box and be creative. You have that capacity. You have that capacity to innovate, to inspire, and to impact. So today, let's step out of that box. Step away from routine and step into creative thinking. Ask more questions. Make more space. Break the mold. In other words, it means do completely different things from what has been done before or from what is usually done. And most of all, invite God to stir up the gifts inside you. I always say that nobody was brought into this world empty-handed. We're loaded with gifts, talents, and abilities. Your voice, your vision, your ideas, they all matter, ladies and gentlemen. So let me throw out this challenge to you one more time and this week. And I challenge someone out there to pick up one area of your life, either home, work, ministry, relationship, and ask, what's one creative way I can improve this? And after you've asked that question, act on it. Because creative thinking doesn't just stay in your mind, it moves into action. Let me say that again. Creative thinking just doesn't stay in your mind, it moves into action. So again, thank you for tuning in to Step Out, Step In podcast live on YouTube and Facebook. And if you happen to watch the replay, I also want to thank you so much. And if today's episode